Alright, so in this section, I'm going to go over everything you need to know to record your first pattern. Alright, I'm going to go over 2 ways to record. I'm going to explain all the functions of the pads you see over here. I'm going to dive into note repeat. And I'm even going to show you a couple of things that might help you out when you're making your first pattern. Alright, specifically how to adjust the volume, swing, and tempo of your overall project, as well as using solo and mute, as well as choke. Alright, so first things first. Let me just say I'm going to be in events view a lot of this lesson just to show you what's going on. I'm going to go over pattern view and event view later on in the course, but right now I'm keeping it in event view just so I can explain everything and then show it to you as well. Alright, so first things first, let's go ahead and record. If I go into events view and I just hit record, you'll see that nothing really happens. Alright, if I hit play, you see the playhead move. You can also see it on your computer if you got your computer up, but in events view you can see the playhead move. Nothing really works. If I hit restart, stop, and then restart, again you see the playhead move, but it doesn't start from the very beginning. Alright, so if you want your playhead to start from the very beginning, what you want to do is hit shift and record. Alright, and as you heard, that's going to give you a count in. It gave you 4 beeps, 4 beats for a bar, and then it went ahead and recorded. If you're like me, you want to hear the metronome go as you're recording too. So if you want to do that, all you have to do is hit shift and tap. And so now when we hit shift record, it's going to give the count in as well as keep the time. Alright, so let's say that the metronome's too soft, maybe it's a little too loud for you. And if you want to mess with some of the metronome settings, all you have to do is just hit the settings button up here. Make sure you're on the general tab, and if you're not, just use the 4D encoder to get yourself there. And you'll see that as you hit shift tap, it toggles metronome enabled on and off. You can also use this, but same thing as doing the shit over here. Alright, you can adjust the volume of the metronome. You'll notice that if you turn it left or right ever so slightly, it makes a big difference. If you want to adjust it in finer increments, all you have to do is hold shift, and that's going to slow things down so that you can adjust it to where you want it to be. I'm going to keep mine at 0 dB, but feel free to go wherever you like. Alright, you can adjust the timing. I've got mine set to 4th time, but if you wanted, you can change it to 8th time, even 16ths or triplets. Alright, but I'm going to keep mine on 4th time. So auto on, I keep mine off, but it does make life a lot easier. If you turn it on, what's going to happen is when you hit record, it automatically turns off the metronome. Let me turn that off for a second. So when you keep this on, what it does when you hit record, it automatically turns on the metronome, and when you hit record again to turn it off, it turns off the metronome too. So that makes your flow a little bit easier. I'm going to keep mine off just because I'm used to that, but it's just a matter of personal preference. The last thing I want to go over is you can change the count in time of your metronome. I got mine at 1 bar. You can set it to 2 bars. You can go 4 bars if you're into that. And that's pretty much it for the metronome settings, alright? So before I record a pattern, let me just go over the function of these pads real quick. To access any of these functions, what you want to do is hit shift and then whatever pad you want to access the function to, alright? So let me go through them one by one. The first pad is undo, second pad is redo. Pretty obvious until you see pads 3 and 4, which you see is step undo and step redo. Alright, so what's the difference? Let's say I recorded just 5 hi-hats. Alright, I recorded 5 hi-hats. If I hit shift pad 1 to undo it, it's going to get rid of all 5 hi-hats. If I hit shift pad 2, it's going to put all of them back. But if I hit shift pad 3 to step undo, it's going to go from 5 hi-hats to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 to 0. And redo, same thing, just in the reverse direction, and it's going to put all 5 hi-hats back. Alright? For pad 5, quantize, you're going to be using quantize a lot. And without complicating it too much, what it does is it aligns the events that you record to the grid so that it's on time. Alright, what do I mean by events? So when you're recording something, what you're actually doing is recording a pattern. Alright? And the notes that you're playing in there, those are your events. So if I go to pad mode and I'm just playing this, that's the pattern, alright? But the kick, snare, closed hi-hat, open hi-hat, as I was hitting them, when I was hitting them, those are going to be your events. And so the closer they are to the grid, or the closer you play them in time when you have the metronome going, and you hit quantize, whether you're a little late or a little early, it's okay. It's going to snap to the next possible step. All right. So if you want to adjust that step, you might have to play around with this, but if you want to adjust the size of the grid, all you have to do is hit shift follow, and that's going to take you in grid mode. Make sure you're in step mode, and you can change how closely they snap to the grid from here. I keep mine to 1/16. I find that works quite a bit. But if you've got like faster runs, maybe you've got, a lot of hi-hats, something like that, you're better off going to 1/32, maybe even 1/64. And so as you have more divisions in the grid, when you hit quantize, it becomes a little more nuanced. All right, but I'm going to keep mine to 1/16 for now. And you know what? Let me actually just explain what I mean by grid. Let me show you. So if you go into events view, and I'll go into this later, but I just want to explain this right now. If you haven't already pinned it, just as the first button, and you're going to pin events view. So you'll see that I got my step grid set to 1/16. All right. You'll see that between each beat over here, and this is just a magnified version of this. Between each beat over here, you see that there are 4 divisions. All right, 4 divisions per beat, 4 beats per bar. The grid is in 1/16. If I go ahead and if I hit shift grid, go back to grid mode, make sure I'm in step, and I hit 132, that should mean that between each beat, I've got 8 divisions, because 8 divisions per beat, 4 beats per bar is 132. So if I go back to events view, you're going to see that between each beat, I've got 8 divisions now. All right, but I'm going to go back to grid view, put it back into 1/16 mode, and you'll see that it's back to 4 divisions. Okay, so that's quantize. You're going to see it in action. I don't want to overcomplicate it too much. All you need to know is that if you stay pretty close to the timing on the metronome and you hit shift pad 5, it's going to clean everything up, make sure it's perfectly on time. Pad number 6 makes it so that it's only half quantized. Pad number 7 and 8, nudge left and nudge right. Again, these have to do more with the events. If you want to move them a little to the left, hit pad 7. You want to move them a little to the right, hit pad 8. Pad 9 clear. Let's say you make a pattern, you completely fucked it up, you want to start over. Just hit shift pad 9. It's going to get rid of your entire pattern, and you can re-record. Pad number 10 does the same thing, but with automations and modulation. I'm going to get into that later. Copy paste, self-explanatory. Pad 13, semitone down. Pad 14, semitone up. Pad 15, octave down, and pad 16, octave up. When you look at keyboard mode in the next lesson, you can, I'll just show you right now. So you're going to see that you also have octave down, octave up, semitone down, semitone up here. This is different from this. This actually has to do with the events that you've already recorded. This is actually adjusting the setting of the keyboard. I thought they were the same. They're different. All right. So that kind of aside out of the way. I've explained the pads. I've showed you how to record when you don't have a pattern. And I showed you how to mess with the metronome settings. So what I'm going to do at this point is actually go ahead and record a pattern. I'm going to try to do it in one take. It might take me, a couple of takes, but see if I get this down. All right, so you saw that I recorded it and I quantized it right off the bat. I'm gonna restart it and see how it sounds. I was pretty close on the timing, but let's check. All right, sounds pretty good. I played it again, maybe I went a little too over. I just want to make sure everything was good to go. But it sounds fine to me, all right? So we recorded a pattern. I showed you how to quantize it. I know I threw a lot of information at you, but as you can see, it's a lot quicker to actually do than it is to explain. All right, so I recorded a pattern. To me, it's sounding a little bit loud. So what I want to do is use that kind of as a segue to show you how to change the volume, swing, and tempo of your project. All right. So if I go over here, let me just turn record off. If I go over here into volume and I turn this 4D encoder, you're going to see over here that it does change the master volume. So I'm going to turn mine down to about -1.5, and I'm going to keep it there. If I wanted to mess with the swing, I also could. I just have to hit the button, and let's turn this up to 35, see how it sounds. So you can mess with the swing there. If I go into tempo, you can see I can turn the tempo up, I can turn the tempo down. So if I go up to 120, you get the idea. So I'm going to turn it back down to 100. And another thing on tempo, you saw that I hit shift tap to hit metronome. Another way you can adjust tempo is, let's say you don't really know the exact BPM of whatever pattern it is that you're thinking of, all right? But you can, snap to the beat, you can clap to the beat. What you can do is just hit tap 4 times as you're snapping. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna calculate the tempo and then set that as the tempo for your project. So let's say you had something that sounded like this. All right, so you'll see that the tempo now changed from 100 down to 99.47. All right, so I was pretty close to 100 beats per minute. If you're like me, you don't really like seeing that 0.47, so what you want to do is just still make sure you're in tempo, hit shift, and just turn the 40 encoder until it goes to 0. And then from there, you can let go of shift and you can adjust the tempo any way you want it. All right. So I explained how to change the volume, swing, and tempo of your project. I showed you how to record a pattern when you don't already have one. Went through the functions of the pads. I showed you how to use quantize. I explained that a little bit. And I also showed you how to mess with the metronome settings. All right. So to me, this is already a pretty complete pattern. But let's just say that I wanted to add more layers to it, right? Maybe I wanted to add a little something so it has a little more substance. Before we hit shift record, and that started a pattern over from the very beginning. But you can also keep the pattern playing, have record turned on, and you can add it as you're going in. So you can just add another layer as it's playing. All right. So you can keep it playing. Just turn that down for a little bit. So you can keep it playing and you can mess with the pads over here, but make sure you turn record off. So while you're finding a sound, a layer, make sure you have recording off so that you can still play around without it actually affecting the original pattern. All right. So let's say that I wanted to add let's say that I wanted to add the kick in there. I think I'm gonna go like at the end, and just to show you how to add a layer to this pattern. All right, so I'm gonna play it, hit record because I've already found my sound, and I'm just gonna go ahead and add it. Once I'm there, I'm gonna hit shift pad 5 and quantize it. I don't have to worry about it fucking up my pattern because everything's already in time. All right, so I'll show you. So you heard it there. All right. So that's how you add layers. That's how you use record to add another layer. The last 2 things I want to show you real quickly is note repeat, as well as how to use mute, solo, and choke. All right. So let's say that I had a pattern and I wanted to add just straight hi-hats on every 8th note. Instead of going 1, N2, N3, N4, N, I can just go ahead and hit note repeat, set it over to 8th, and just go from there. Tempo will stay the same as to whatever it's set in the project. So, and you don't even have to worry about quantizing it because it's going to be already quantized. It's going to be perfectly in time. Okay, and you can go ahead, click on any pad, works with that. And if you want to change the pace of it, all you have to do is just mess with these buttons up here. All right. And if I turn fixed velocity off, you're going to see that the harder I press on the pad, the louder the sound, and the softer I press on the pad, softer the sound. All right. That's pretty much it for note repeat. You can also customize these settings up here. You're not limited to 8th note, 16th, 16 triplet, or 30 seconds. Whatever you want to change, just click on the pad you want to change. And let's say that you want 1/28th instead of 1/8 on this button over here. And you can change it to triplet or dotted, but let's just have normal on, right? So if I set this up, you get the idea. You can customize it any way you want. I don't really want like a machine gun for a hi-hat, so I'm just gonna go back into 1/8. All right, so you can go ahead, use that to record your pattern, and that's gonna help you out. Last thing I wanna go over before we move on to the next section is going over solo and mute. So we have this pattern. Let's say we only want to solo the kick pad. What we have to do is hold solo, hit the pad we want to solo. And we can do the same thing for mute. Alright, let's say we want to just hear, again, nothing but the kick. We can also mute all of these other patterns. And you'll see it reflected on the screen here, as well as the pads. That's pretty much it. The last thing is choke, which you saw me use earlier in the last video. If I go into browser, I look through any of these kits, and I just want to cut it off. Shift choke, goes it back to silence. Alright, so that is it for this section. I know I throw a lot at you, but let me just go ahead and recap real quick. I showed you how to record two ways. One when you don't have a pattern, one when you do have a pattern and you want to add a layer to it. I showed you how to mess with the metronome settings by going into the general tab and messing with it over here. I explained all the functions of the pads over here. Explained quantize. You also got a glimpse of event view. And I also showed you how to use note repeat, adjust the settings any way you like, and how to use mute, solo, and choke, and change the volume, swing, and tempo at the project level. Alright? So that's it for this section. In the next section, we're going to go ahead and add an instrument. So if you're ready, I'll see you there.